Welcome to the Single Parent Podcast, where we not only come together to discuss the ups and downs, ins and outs of single parenthood, but also how we support one another along the way in order to develop and maintain healthy relationships. Thank you so much for tuning in to episode 2. Today's episode is titled Solo Parenting Navigating Co Parenting Challenges. The reason why I chose co parenting as the first topic to really get into is because that is the number one topic that people have mentioned to me about their struggles when it comes to being a single parent. Um, while I would say that I too have experienced that as well, but I've also experienced a great journey in one of my co parenting relationships where it might have started out a little rocky, but it definitely has ended currently on a great note. And I feel like we've definitely been able to co-parent in in as much of a healthy way as possible because the relationship is only going to be as healthy as each individual works on themselves. The more they work on themselves, the better not only the relationship with the other co-parent, but also with the child and the extended family as well, right? So, um, let's get into it. So, my personal story, for example, um, I have three children. My oldest is in his early 20s. I have a teenage son, and I have a school age, elementary age daughter. Um, my oldest son is by a different father. My youngest two are by another. And for me, I am very grateful for the experiences that I've had. They're definitely not the same. I would say that I've probably been more communicative with one of the co-parents versus the other. And I think it's also because of the different stages I was in my life, the different ages I was in my life. I've learned a lot more. I can communicate way better, not just with him, but just with people in general. And believe it or not, communication starts with yourself, first and foremost. You need to be transparent and honest with yourself in order to then be able to move in any space in a healthy manner, right? So for me, um, it was just really important that no matter which parent I was dealing with, that at some point we would, I would be able to get along with both of them, be able to move positively with both of them, and then be able to see my children have a better relationship with them and myself, and then us together, because that is possible. Just because you're no longer with the other parent um, and you are co-parenting does not mean that it can't be certain things that you can do together down the line. I don't mind. Let's say for an example, right? My daughter has been dying for me to, hang out with her dad and his significant other, and of course, I think as any other normal breakup in the beginning, it just wasn't something I was going to entertain at that time. I knew that later on down the line, my goal was to be a healthy individual, and so I would have to in turn deal with other people in a healthy way. And so, number one is I'm no longer with this man. Why should it bother me to be in a space with another woman who currently is, just because he's the father of my child? I cannot be, in my opinion, that selfish to prohibit the possibility of my kids having still being able to have a healthy relationship, even though me and their fathers are no longer together. It's still very well possible, and I definitely learned that. Um, but that's also because there are certain things that I personally, live by. So, for example, I understood that both of these men were different. I understood that, certain skills I may need to have with one, I may not need to necessarily have with the other. Um, Also, the ages of my children were different, right? So there's going to be different stages that we're going to be dealing with. Because again, no matter what anybody says, you may not like the other parent, you may express certain things. However, you really have to come to terms with the fact that you're going to have to deal with this person probably for the rest of your life. And you need to really get a handle and wrap your mind around that thought and understand that the better you're able to manage this, the better experience y'all all gonna have. You, the other parent, not just your children, because a lot of times there's other children involved, right? Um, you know, both of the situations that after I stopped dealing with my children's dads, they both winded up, having other children in other relationships. And that is when I really realized it is really not just about me. And it's not even just about my son. It's really also sometimes about the other adults and the other children. To me, I could never behave in a way that is going to be damaging to not just my child, even to somebody else's child, especially if that other child is the sibling of my child. That's just me. If you could sleep at night and do otherwise, then that's on you. Um, so definitely understanding that these men were different, and I needed to have different strategies for both. At one point, I was able to talk to one and not the other, and then at another point, it turned. So you'd be surprised, and I think that I just realized I needed two different techniques, right? I also, again, just created rules and boundaries for myself. So, number one, hey, I will not sleep with my baby dad if I'm no longer with him. And that was a rule that I placed for myself, right? Because, in my opinion, as a woman, when you continue to have sex with a man, you are continuing to allow him that power over you. Now we have a child and we're no longer together. I no longer want you to have that power. I need to take my control back, my power back, and be able to say, okay, this is about business. And I think when you do that, ladies, you make it about business, which is about the kids. So that was number one rule for myself. Number two, if I'm no longer with you, then you can no longer control anything in my house. Therefore, you do not show up to my door. You do not feel like you could come in and out my house unannounced. I don't care how many kids you got. It's a level of respect. If I cannot do that to you, and that's what I was saying. If I can't go to your crib and I can't knock on your door with your girl and your baby mother, then you can't do that to me. Because I'm telling you now, I'm a grown ass woman. And if I want to move on and when I want to move on and how is how I'm going to do it. And it's not your place to disrespect or make it seem as if what I mean, you again have some sort of power over the situation that you no longer are part of. So just creating like my own rules and boundaries was really important. And so collect just overall what I chose to do was to put my differences aside and be at least at the very least cordial and friendly, right? Because I know growing up, a lot of people, heard their parent talk really badly about the other parent. And it's understandable. As a woman, it's very frustrating to hold a lot of the responsibility when, ideally we're not made for that. However, there is a time where, you have to say to yourself, well, I'm going to put things aside and I'm going to really focus on the kid. I had to learn to move past that. I had to learn that no matter how hurt I was, I needed to still respect this man so I can then gain the respect back so my children can then respect us as a family. I understood that it's going to be a process. And so in the beginning, I tried to take that space as much as I could. Um, and be vocal and say, I'm not ready for this and I'm not ready for that. But also again, behind closed doors, work on myself first, and in turn, I was able to get to certain levels of progression in my co-parenting, and I'm able to, be in a room with the other woman and the other children, and not feel a kind of way because he's moved on and has another family. It is what it is. I really had to dig deep and say, boo, boo, if I don't want it, why do I care? You know what I mean? But again, give yourself the time and the space, though, to heal. Be clear about that. Again, create your rules and boundaries for yourself, and then also, and then move on. When you've more after you've mourned, depending on how long you've been with an individual, depending on how much you've intertwined your lives together during the time that you were together and had those children, it might take a long time to heal and get over that. So it is understandable. Um, I've also kept to my word to myself in terms of um, keeping him informed, right? Keeping them informed and making sure that I'm doing my best to uh, give them their respect as the parent. Now, granted, I feel like there should be a give and a take. Like I shouldn't always be, calling on you and asking you. It's summertime, about August-ish. You need to do back to school. I shouldn't have to track you down. You should know these things. So all in all, I feel that I've definitely learned to be more understanding to the other parent, not just the other parent, the other significant others of the parent, the other family of that parent. Because again, it's really when you really take a step back and think logically here is it's not it's not. And when the children grow up and they become adults, and you see all of the many issues and struggles that they face, you then realize, maybe I should have done things a little bit differently. Just my personal word of advice for you. So, like I said, there's definitely been some challenges, but there's also been some really important lessons learned. I would say the biggest challenges becoming a single parent was, of course, just having less funds, less money to do, what you need to do. Sometimes you can't even do what you want to do because you even got no money to do what you need to do. And so many a times I've done payment arrangements for bills. Afterpay's a big thing now. Listen, do what you got to do to save that coin and to make the most of what you have. I think that also, I lacked daily support in my house. You know what I mean? And I think that unfortunately that might have kept me in a relationship way longer than I should have because I knew once that person goes, my support goes. Especially the way in which I had it when the person was living there, right? Of course, they're going to still help out, but it's never going to be the same as if the person were living in the house. And I think that a lot of times fathers or non-custodial parents don't realize you as a custodial parent take a big hit to your personal time with anything and your money because those are the two biggest things that there's no way that my kid's going to live with me and I'm not going to be able to provide for them money wise or time wise because hello, they live with me. I'm gonna go out and get me some Chipotle and come and eat it in my child's face like, oh, how's that noodles and noodles, girl? Is it good? Okay. That's horrible. So, I think the non-custodial parents do not grasp that as well as a custodial parent. A custodial parent is one that lives in the household. Non-custodial meaning you don't have custody of your child, and your child does not live with you. Anyway, also having to deal with normal breakups. You break up with the person. Me personally, I distance myself. I'm a big person that distances themselves, and I don't want to deal with you anymore. I'm out of sight, out of mind until I get it right. And so it's hard when you have to deal with this person, and you may not necessarily like them too much, but because you have a child with them, you really have no choice. It's hard, and again, that's when the healing again is really important. Because I had to be mature for my kids, if not, anybody else. Some of the lessons that I've learned is that, plain and simply, none of us have the answers to any of this, especially parenthood, right? Even our parents. Spoiler alert, they don't know that much either. What they knew is what they were taught. And unfortunately, it was a one size fit all type of parenting back in the days, which was unfortunate because I think that it definitely instilled a sheep mentality in a lot of us. in that we felt the need to follow the rules. You know, do what you're being told. Don't ask no questions. And unfortunately, that was not, in my opinion, the best take. I think that allowing your children to have a voice is really important. But nonetheless, uh, being open to what the other parent thinks and feels, because again, their feelings do matter. You know what I mean? Unfortunately, if you didn't want them to, then you should have thought about that before you had a kid with this person. And I too had to and realize that again, I can't really control much but myself. Can't even control my kids. And so I needed to really, you know what I mean, get an understanding that it's important to me for my kids to be happy. And so I started to be grateful for the things that I did have. I started to, be mindful as well, um, for what I was doing. Taking accountability and responsibility for my behavior and how instead of me saying you need to do this and you need to do that, I really had to focus on Natalie. What do you need to be able to forget what everybody else want to do? If they don't want to do it, they could sleep good at night. Hey, that's on them. Me personally, I knew it was important for me to strive to be the best parent that I could be because I just did not want my kids to have to go through as much trauma as a lot of us have. Um, and I'm glad that I took that stance. So anybody who knows me knows that A, I'm nosy, and B, I like to do research. I like to read. I do like to look up things. I like to learn about things. So let's learn a little bit today. Now, I know we've used the word a lot, co-parent, but what does it actually mean? You know, so basically, it is to share the duties of raising a child, used especially of parents who are separated or not in a current relationship. And it's funny because as I was doing a little bit of research on co-parenting, different co-parenting styles came up. And it was interesting because I said to myself when I was reading, I was like, wow, wait a minute. So there's actually types of co-parenting situations. And so let's see where we fit on this list. So they're categorized into three different co-parenting styles. The first is called parallel parenting. The second is cooperative co-parenting. And the third is conflicted co-parenting. Probably by the title, you can probably tell a little bit about what it's about, but let's see. So the first, parallel parenting, which I got from lawfirm.com. It says, notice the word parenting is used here rather than co parenting. And that is because there is little to no engagement between the parents. But no judgment, no judgment. Um, each parent operates within their own domain. The problem with this approach is that there is no consistency. The children may experience a very different lifestyle with different rules and boundaries with one parent than they do with the other. And that creates harmful stress for the children. That creates harmful stress for the children. I just want to stress that. And the reason why is because I think that unfortunately, especially when you're talking about baby daddies and baby mamas when we come from the hood, because that's where I come from. Um, this type of parenting style is, I know it sounds crazy, but again, I think it's unfortunate and sad that growing up, my idea of parents was what I saw, which were two parents, which were probably either not together or off and on, where they experienced constant fighting, arguing, especially in front of the children. I mean, that was not taboo. And so when I read this, again, a lot of those situations came to my mind. And I'm joking around about it, but it's really sad because that is also why I wanted to repeat the last sentence. Again, if you care about your child, you need to start caring about not only how they view you as an individual parent, but how they view you and the other parent. I remember my son saying to me, Mom, I would rather you and Dad be not together if y'all can get along rather than y'all be together just for me and not get along. And when he said that, it really hit me because I realized that even a kid in my own kid. So I was both, you know, very much so in admiration of him, but also like, and I had to really, that's what really gave me the courage actually to kind of, move forward. And so I do thank him for that. Now, the second definition we have is cooperative co-parenting. This often requires a plan. Both parents will negotiate and compromise until they can agree on a set of rules that they will both follow. I feel that that is definitely what what I strive to do every single day. Am I successful 100% of the time? No. And I will take accountability for that. It's not just the other person. However, I don't know if I would take it this, for example, of a plan. I mean, no offense, but sometimes men don't even like to talk. So, I found ways to communicate again with each individual. You know what I mean? The communication styles are not the same when it comes to both of my kids' dads, right? So I think once I got a handle on that, we were kind of able to create our own healthy situation. And I think that's really important over, being so stringent with a plan. So we're going to have plans for their lives, which is not good, but I'm just saying. And the last definition is conflicted parenting. It means active conflicts and emotional disengagement are common, and the research shows that this results in negative outcomes for many children exposed to it. So I think this is actually talking about, yeah, the fighting and stuff like that. My bad. The first one, parallel parenting, is more so right. They don't speak to one another. But I think that if we really look at all three of them, for me, for example, I think my parenting style has fluctuated between the three at any given moment. And again, I'm realizing that a lot of it has to do with my mindset at the time and how healthy am I at this current moment that then allows me to be able to communicate with in the best way possible, even when they going crazy and they got a nasty attitude. Like, how can I keep myself together that way they then in turn feel stupid and just like, okay, why am I gonna sit and be mad at this girl? She, she being nice, Um, not saying that you put up with abuse because again, let's go back to rules and boundaries. You have to have those. So, again, I think that realistically and ideally, we do fluctuate between the different parenting styles at any given moment. And, be gracious with yourself, first and foremost, and then with the other parent. Um, I also came across this establishing healthy co parenting boundaries involves open communication, mutual respect, and a focus on the child's well being, which is exactly what, I just said. Now, it's interesting because I found a list of co parenting tools. I was just, researching different resources and tools for co parents. And it was funny because a whole list of apps came up. And it was really interesting because, I mean, it named everything. It was five different apps. I'll just run you the names of them really quickly. Number one is Our Family Wizard. And you can download them if you want to. Some of them are free, some of them are not. Probably most are not. But I just thought it was interesting. Our Family Wizard. So this is an app that coordinates parenting schedules with your ex and tracks shared expenses. So I guess, if you want to buy your kids something and you want to split the cost, you can then do that through that app, is what it sounds like. There's another app called Co-Parently. It facilitates effective co-parenting by providing tools like a calendar, messaging center, expense tracker. It even allows parents to provide special access to their children so that they too can keep track of your parenting schedule without accessing any other tool. Like, don't when I'm available to that. I wish. Another one is called Cozy, COZI. Um, and it includes features, again, like a shared calendar, to-do list, and even a place to share shopping lists. This can be helpful when putting together birthday gift lists or tracking down items on your school's. And there's a few others, but I just wanted to give you an idea of what those look like because when I first came across them, I was like, oh, what is that? Me personally, in my experiences, there's a notes app, especially on the iPhone. I'm pretty sure all phones have it, but there's a notes app. And, I was already using my notes app for my own personal documentation of certain things that I needed to keep track of. And at one point, I remember creating a list and I realized that I could share the list. So, for example, if you have a school supply list that you want to create for your child and you want to include these, this is a great way, especially if you're dealing with someone who doesn't like to talk and doesn't like to communicate, which I've been that person. I've been a texter over caller for a very long time. And I will say that I had to kind of break out of that. But some people are still there. So for me, for one of my co-parents, this was especially useful because all I simply had to do was share the note with him via text or via email. They would get the link. I would see when they're on the note. I would see what edits they made, if they added an item, if they crossed out something and said, "Oh, I bought this," blah blah blah. We were able to actually communicate in that way on that note app. Believe it or not. You can also, which I've done as well, create a Google Calendar just for your child's schedule or info, such as school events, doctor's appointments, etc. My daughter tends to have a lot of doctor's appointments, so this is a great way for me to share with her dad because she has anywhere from 15 to maybe 30 doctor's appointments per year just alone for her asthma and dermatology. And I know. So I'm not gonna be the one taking off all the days with myself. I will send you an invite. You accept it, you don't accept it, we'll talk about it if you don't. And then no, I do compromise. And then we'll definitely take it from there and figure out, what days will take her versus me. But again, that's also really to be able to communicate with that person in a nonverbal way. So some tips that a website gave is that if you want better co-parenting relationships, you want to listen patiently, um, respect the other person's opinion. I know it's hard, especially when you really, but again, work on yourself, work through that, and then learn to respect the other person's opinion. Um, Staying calm. I mean, again, your children see your behavior towards their other parent. And even though you may think they don't see it, even though you may think they don't hear the things you say about them, they do. And it will affect them. And so I highly recommend that you take this into consideration, um, moving forward in your co-parenting journey. Avoid criticism. Stop always looking at the other person as the villain. Like they are a person at the end of the day. They're struggling with shit in this world just like you. Let's be mindful. Let's stop being so selfish that we can't see that. Because again, at one time, you love this person. You love them so much. So. In most cases, now there are a few exceptions, but in most cases, you love that person so much. So much. And you brought a life into this world. So it behooves you. I'm just saying, the less trauma your child will face in the future, to really, get a handle on your emotions, move forward in a positive light, and understand that that person is just a person, just like you. So here's some communication tips. Um, the importance of effective communication with the co-parent is really vital. Number one, like I said before, it affects your kids. It could be to the point where they feel like they have to pick a side between you or the other parent, and it's not fair. And it's all because your kids are not stupid. They know, oh, mommy don't like daddy, daddy don't like mommy, and so unfortunately, you're putting your child in a position where they feel they have to maybe cater to one parent over the other. Maybe they have to play y'all both, and that's sad. You're already teaching your child manipulations tactics, which is not good. Um, it also can make them feel like it's their fault. You know what I mean? Like that y'all broke up. And so again, parents, this is what I'm saying about being mindful. This is not just about you. This is more so about them. And you will realize as they get older, I don't know if it's because I just have older kids. One is an adult, that I've been able to kind of see the full picture now. But it's unfortunate that it was too late for me to, go back and fix anything and change anything. So I'm purely coming to you from my own experiences and experiences I've seen other people go through. Strategies for maintaining respectful and productive communication, similar to what we mentioned previously. Number one, set boundaries. Figure out what those boundaries are for you and be consistent with them. Be firm with them. Be clear with them. If you need to, get a third party mediator. I will say that there were not always times where I was able to clearly communicate with the other person. And so, unfortunately, we would need a mediator at that time. And so, if that is what you need, take advantage of that. Do what you have to do. Whether it is you go to a court and get a mediator, it could be a family member, it could be somebody in the church, it could be a friend, it could be a mentor. Um, you'd be surprised. You can go to therapy, with that person. Yes, granted, y'all not in a relationship, but y'all have to have some sort of parenting relationship, and whether you want to admit that or not. So that's really important. Me personally, um, in certain instances where I felt like maybe the other person would get a little bit, upset about certain things, I would meet outside with them in a public location. That way, they'll think twice about, blowing up. Know what you're gonna say before you say it. I'm just naturally like that. Like when I know I'm gonna have a conversation with someone, I can tend to overthink it. Therefore, I try to lay it out in my head, go through it a little bit. But also another step further you could take is like writing it down, just getting it out of your brain. Because I think sometimes when you have a time to process what you're saying or what you're going to say to someone, no matter who it is, you're able to kind of edit it and make any changes that you need to what you're going to say so that you can ensure that person receives it. Because I think a lot of times in co-parenting situations, especially when there's conflict, when you don't get along with the other person, when you don't speak to them at all, you don't care. Um, and again, that's only working for so long. So definitely know what you're going to say. Say it respectfully. You can, and again, write it down. Um, and managing conflict is also a big thing that we need to do on a constant basis, not just as co-parents, but in our everyday lives. I live in New York City, so managing conflict is an everyday struggle for me. Whether I'm on the train, whether I'm at work, whether I'm in the store, whether I'm crossing the street. I mean, it comes from it has to be done at all times in order to get through, what we face here in this city every single day. Um, but let's figure out where those conflicts come into play. I think if you kind of know beforehand, what that looks like, you can get through that a little bit better. A lot of the conflicts come from either money, again, more so lack of money, lack of time. One person has more responsibility than the other, and it becomes resentment, right, with the other parent, which is not good. Um, Now, one of the parenting methods that I've definitely um, learned about recently over the past few years, definitely after I had my daughter, and decided to kind of learn about and maybe establish in some ways with my children is called conscious parenting. Now, initially, I was introduced to it. It was called gentle parenting, which I was like, "Ugh, okay." But conscious parenting I like better just because I feel like it better describes what it really is. And so conscious parenting is it asks that instead of striving to fix your child, parents look inward at themselves. Conscious parenting views children as independent beings, though admittedly still developing over time, who can teach parents to become more self aware. I really gravitated towards this method just because it spoke to a lot of what I, as a child, kind of look back and wish would have been done with me. Um, and so, a website I went to called Healthline suggests that through serious consideration of cultural legacies, let's not forget that there's cultural aspect to raising children, or to put it more bluntly, family baggage and personal conditioning, parents can begin to let go of their own checklist for how life should be done. By releasing these checklists, they believe that parents free themselves from forcing beliefs on their children. And when this occurs, children become free to develop their true identity. Um, Ultimately, they argue that this will help children connect with their parents since they're being accepted for who they really are. And again, I really just thought it was interesting because I, it's something that I wish was done with me as a child, being, more understood, trying to, excuse me, let me turn my phone on, trying to be allowed to be myself and find my place in the world. And to me, this is just what this encompasses, right? And so then as a parent, and then when I had a daughter, especially, I realized that I just really needed to be as a parent. So I just really adopt, I would say, some of their principles. All of them, I don't know, maybe not, because there's a time where I'm like, listen, stop your nonsense, because I'm not playing with you, not today, not today, and not right now. And that was taught to me, and I think that it's okay to pull certain elements from our childhood that stem from how we parented into us being parents, as long as they're healthy. And sometimes I use it just as comedy, as just being funny with my kids, so they can understand that it's not easy being a parent. Key elements of conscious parenting, still from Healthline website. Parenting is a relationship and not a one-way transmission process. Children are their own unique people who can teach a parent. I know that sounds crazy, but I learn a lot from my children. I've allowed myself to open up my mind to accept criticism, to accept learning lessons from my children. And it's not always easy. There's times where I don't agree, that I don't feel initially like it's good, but later on down the line, I'm glad that I was able to extend a certain amount of grace and understanding to my children. Yeah. Uh, Conscious parenting is about letting go of a parent's ego, desires, and attachments. As parents, we attach our thoughts, our goals, our beliefs, our ways of thinking, and even our characteristics and our behaviors on our children. And we have to be more conscious of that, both in negative and positive ways. So, just as much as our positive attributes and characteristics rub off on our children, so does our negative ones. And so, again, it really just starts with us and understanding that we have to humble ourselves and, yeah, and learn. Instead of forcing behaviors on children, parents should focus on their own language, their expectations, and their self regulation. So, you want your kid to stop cursing, but are you cursing all day, every day? So you want your kids to stop fighting, but are you fighting all day, every day? I mean, again, they only do what they see. Any child, I always tell people, I used to work in a school as a secretary. Hey y'all. And it was interesting because I always would say that if you want to see the reason why a student is being difficult or challenging, look at the parent. And it's not to be shady, but it's the truth. Us as parents, like even when I was going through hard times as a single parent, especially when I was younger in my early 20s, and I didn't realize like how my behavior was affecting my kids because they were much younger at the time and they were not able to vocalize how they felt. nor would I at that time even have allowed them to, which is crazy because now it's completely different. Um, Instead of reacting to issues with consequences, parents should establish ahead of time and use positive reinforcement. I know a lot of fellow parents that, tend to explain the expectations to their child, and then when the they then explain to them, how this has affected them and help them get through that, because sometimes a child could become emotional when they realize, oh, they did something wrong, or their parent is upset or disappointed with them. So I found that really interesting. That definitely wasn't how I was raised. um, but working on that too as well. Instead of trying to fix a momentary problem, example like a temper tantrum, it's important to look at the process, right? What led up to this event and what does it mean in a bigger picture? A lot of times as parents, we tend to blame these situations on our children, but if your kid is having a tantrum, what about their environment are they uncomfortable with that they're behaving that way? Are they sleepy? Are they hungry? Do they not want to be in that store that you have them in shopping in for 2 hours? Maybe they don't want to be there. Maybe they're tired. Maybe they or overstimulated. All of our children deal with various different things. And so being conscious of that and aware of that and sympathetic to that and understanding and respectful of that. Like we don't respect our children enough, especially their feelings. Um, Parenting is not just about making a child happy. Children can grow and develop through struggles. A parent's ego and needs should not prevent a child's growth. That's definitely something I had to learn. I felt that as a parent, I had to make my child comfortable all the time. I had to make things easy for them. And that was what being a good parent is until they started growing up and having their little attitudes. And, I started realizing, like, wait a minute, hold on. Maybe they do need to learn a lesson. And it's okay for them to feel uncomfortable sometimes. That's okay for them to fend for themselves sometimes. Sorry, it's the 4th of July, so you might hear a firework. And I'm in the Bronx. But yeah, I thought that was really interesting, and it's definitely 100% spot on. And so acceptance requires being present and engaging with whatever situations present themselves. Long story short, as parents, we're just our children's guide in life along this journey. We're, again, not only teaching them, but we're also learning with them as well. Um, Now, if we prioritize our children's needs, then I feel like that is the number one way we'll be able to see an improvement in our co parenting relationships, right? So some of the ways that I do that is I'll invite them to events. So Layla had a fashion show she was featured in, and I invited her dad, and he came with his girlfriend and his other daughter, which is Layla's sister. And that was really cool because she was able to share that moment, not just with her father, but her father was also to share that moment with his significant other and his other child. And I think that was important to be able to allow him to do that, inviting him to graduations. I don't need to be so salty that I can invite you to a graduation. Now, that's not to say that there's not certain situations in your co-parenting experiences that might warrant you saying, you know what, I'm not inviting him out of, safety reasons or whatever personal reasons you feel justified for having, right? Maybe you're just not there to be able to deal with that. And that's fine. Or you can do maybe separate events and celebrate your child in certain achievements that they have made in their lives. Um, Also being nice to the other parent, accepting that the other parent um, is who they are, and communicating what you won't accept, and also understanding that you may never see eye to eye with them. Um, but if their point of view or the way that they parent is not harming your child, it's not abusing them, it's not putting them in any vulnerable position, then why can't you just let it rock? Balancing consistency and flexibility in parenting approaches. I feel that balancing consistency and so being consistent and flexible is equally important in being a parent, right? Um, and the way you show that is showing up when you say you're gonna show up. Not just for dads, even for moms. There's a lot of us as moms, we've dropped the ball a lot. There's a lot of times that my kids had events at their school, at their after school, in the sports programs or whatever other arts programs they may have been a part of. and I wasn't there to support them, and it really hurt them. And while I may even have had a justified excuse, such as I had to work, which was mainly probably most likely what it was, um, it's hard to accept that and understand that, but show up as much as you can when you say that you are. Communicate when you can show up. There were times where, I was going to drop my kid off to their father, contacted me and was like, "Listen, I'm sick. I'm not feeling well, and so I have to think like, okay, do I want my child with her parent that is sick? Like maybe I don't. So maybe I could chalk it up and just maybe you can take them an extra weekend then or extra week. When you do feel better to kind of help me then make it up because I do also have a personal life. But again, I can't get so engulfed in my personal life that I become inconsiderate of somebody else, especially the other parent, which then affects my child, right? Work out schedules or make arrangements ahead of time. The summer is here, it's getting busy, and I'm learning that. And I said to myself the other day, I think that I definitely need to reach out to my kid's dad and, say, hey, let me know some days during the summer that you will absolutely need the kids because there are things that you plan to do with them and that you want to do with them so that I know if, let's say, I take them on a vacation, when's the best time for me to do that so that, you have time with the children just as well as I do, right? So something so simple as that could be utilized. Be mindful and considerate that the other parent has a life. Again, self-care for us solo parents, um, I cannot tell you how important this will be for you. And if you have not already started maintaining your self-care and putting yourself as a priority and maintaining self-care rituals and practices for yourself on a daily, if not weekly basis, then I'm not sure how long you're going to survive this. Because to be honest with you, I think that once I started implementing a self care habit, because it had to start with a habit and then it will become a routine. And then from there, it could be a practice, right? So I can't say self care habits or practices because I'm not sure if I'm there yet. But what I will say is that, again, I realized that each and every day there's something that I can do to give back to myself. I've said this before, and I'm sure we've all heard people say, I give so much to other people, but I don't give that much to myself. And so I had to say to myself every single day, Natalie, how can I put you first today? What can I do for you today that's going to make you happy? It could be something so simple as I'm going to go get me some sushi today, or I'm going to go see my boo today, if you do have a boo thing, right? Or I'm gonna go take a nice hot bath and read me a good book. If it's I'm gonna go, go to bed early and get under the covers and get cozy and put some candles on all by myself and watch me a good Netflix series, a Netflix movie, a Netflix documentary, because baby, I love me a documentary. And, just fall asleep, eat some good snacks, work out, do a nice workout, journal, work on a project, an important project or passionate project that I have on my mind or that I've been meaning to finish or been meaning to start or been meaning to perfect, or you know what I mean? Again, just focusing on myself a little bit more has helped this self-care process and just parenting process so much. Uh, I make sure that I do something for myself, if not every day, definitely every week. Take advantage of breaks. So, when my kids dad would have them, there was times where, I just would feel like nothing but taking a nap. I would feel like nothing but cleaning the house. I would feel like nothing but just, and then there were times, yeah, I mean, I'm gonna go outside. And that's what I want to do. And I had those moments and those phases in my life. And so I think that, learning what is your spirit asking you to do for yourself right now that you need to heal in a positive way. It could be you could be a phase in your life where you're writing. You could be a phase in your life where you're learning. You could be a phase in your life where you're teaching, preaching, if that's what you do, motivating, mentoring, educating in some way. And so I think listening to what it is that our spirit is telling us that we need to do and moving towards that, I promise you, is going to get you to feel a little bit better. And not only that, but take you where you really want to go, right? this one is key for me, and I'm still learning to do the schedule time for myself if I have to. So there's a lot of people that they learn, right, how to go throughout the day and say, okay, I'm gonna take this break. Like, for example, at work, I have a 30-minute break, but I also have a 15-minute break. And the crazy thing about it is I'm learning and seeing that a lot of people take their lunch break. A lot of them don't leave their desk, which I need to start doing, and I'm going to start doing. And some people don't even take their 15-minute break. And I'm like, what a break that has been wasted. I mean, but again, if you're not utilizing that break, right, in a productive or meaningful way to you that's needed at the time, then what is it for anyway? So learning that even if I need to schedule time for myself, I plug it in my calendar. Natalie, go get your nails done, girl. Natalie, go to the movies and watch this movie. I've never been to movies by myself yet, but I'm trying to get there. Oh, take yourself out to this restaurant. Or I want to go to this dumpling spot. Or I want to go to this, sushi spot. I want to go to this pizza spot. I want to go to this, take this workshop or class. And it's okay to do it by ourselves. It's okay. I remember going to get a massage for the first time and I wound up doing by myself. And I was so proud of myself after. I'm like, girl, you was a big girl now. But it was like, it was so sad at the same time because it's like, why didn't no one tell me that it was okay for me to go and do things alone as a woman? I was always made to feel for some reason that I needed to have a man with me or someone else, or, I don't know. It's so weird. And I don't know if it's maybe also growing up in New York City that also, made me feel that way. I think that's probably what it is too. And so strategies for managing stress and prioritizing my self care vary, right? So, again, create a self care schedule or calendar. Whether it's you get a specific journal or a book or notepad and make that specific to your self care journal or calendar. I just kind of jot down the self care checklist that I want to do, whether it's, take a perfume making workshop or, you know, um, go see a play, go to this specific museum or this specific exhibit at this museum or, art display or whatever. It's New York City. There's always something going on here. And it's sad because I have not taken advantage of a lot. Um, and as a single parent, if you live in New York, child, there's always something to get into. But, I really am cautious too, because I could be both extrovert and introvert of the crowd that I'm in and going into. And so I could be a little standoffish depending on the environment that I'm. So I like to feel comfortable. So, bear with me, understand that. But strategies for managing stress and prioritizing our self care. So not only creating a self care calendar, but having a partner to do certain things with. It could be a significant other, it could be a friend, it could be a sister, it could be a brother, it could be a coworker, it could be. I've had so many great friendships come out of coworkerships. Uh, hey guys, anyone who's been my former coworker, yeah, know, while I like to be a professional, I'm also, a little bit funny and silly because it's like, why do we have to torture ourselves for 7 hours a day for these people? We might as well make the most of it. Um, but having a partner to do certain things with. So, I want to like take a dance class and I think I'm going to ask one of my coworkers if they'll go with me. And I think they'll be down. Um, Finding creative outlets, going back to when I was a kid, what was things that I like to do, right? So for me, I like to draw, dance, sing. I don't know if I would say act necessarily because I was really, really shy. I think eventually I probably would have been able to get into it, but uh initially I don't know if my confidence level would have allowed me to be that outgoing. I would have had to work on that a lot, I think, in order to be an actress at that time when I was little. But I definitely wanted to model like when I was like 16, 17-ish, around that age. So finding creative outlets and hobbies, right? Um, Embracing spiritual enlightenment and whatever that means for you, right? I grew up a certain religion. However, I've taught my children to be free in discovering what the right spiritual path is for them, right? And it's not about religion at all for me. And teaching them is more about what morals and values most do you mostly relate with, and if that includes a religion, which religion is closely related to what you believe. I like a lot of the Buddhist beliefs. That's where yoga comes from and Pilates and all of that. And, speak to a Christian person a Pentecostal old school one, let them tell it is the devil. So, again, I had to shut out a lot of the ignorant thinking and comments and really do some research for myself. And it's no shade to Christianity at all, but a lot of the closed mindedness that happens in that environment is sad. And it really frustrates me because when I grew up and I had friends that were Muslim and all other sorts of religious, Jewish and all of that. It disheartened me to know that I came from an environment that judged them so harshly, all because of the fact that they just weren't really familiar with the other religion, and that's really all it is. It's just ignorance, which is sad. Um, and so therapy that could be needed to manage your self-care and stress. It's been such a great resource to have someone to talk to over the last few years. I've had a few therapists over the past 3 years, I would say, and it's been really helpful. It's helped me put a lot of things into perspective. It's helped me answer a lot of my own questions and realize why it is that I do the things that I do, and it's been really eye-opening. I never felt judged, and if you do, then that's not the therapist for you. It's okay to say like, okay, um, I don't. I don't vibe with this person. Can I, do you have someone else in mind that you can refer or suggest that I can use and speak to? We're not all going to connect with everyone, right? But I definitely had someone eventually who wasn't going to give up on me, and he saw that, I was kind of running away from therapy in the beginning, and I would like cancel appointments a lot, and he made it his business to like even to this day if I miss an appointment, he's like, hello, how are you? What's going on? When we gonna talk? And I'm like, okay, let's schedule an appointment because I can be a out of sight, out of mind kind of person. And when it's something that's challenging to me, I can shy away from it and run away from it. And I feel like I've been doing that for all my life. um, Therapy, church is also a great strategy for managing stress and prioritizing self care. Church, if that's what's for you. Groups of different kinds. So it doesn't have to necessarily be church, it could be a church group. I recently joined a women's group for a church. Um, and it's interesting because, while I don't necessarily care for church, the group has been so empowering to me. It's been so motivating for me. It's helped me continue to do this podcast and be on this journey. And it's just been so amazing to be connected to a lot of really focused, positive, like minded women, focused and oriented. So I'm just blessed in that aspect. So see, God ain't left me completely now. Everybody that thought that, but so being a part of different groups of any kind, whether it be personal or professional, right? Any personal interest or professional interest. I used to do a lot of networking events when I first started out as a recruiter. Anybody who knows, I used to be a job coach, job recruiter for about 10 years. Oh my God, this was like at least 6, 7 years ago, and I learned a lot, gained a lot of resources. And so one of the biggest helps that I utilized were Meetup. Remember Meetup.com? Yes, honey, they still around too. But I used to utilize them for networking events that they would put together. And they would put together some really great networking events. The first one I started to become a part of was called the Hispanic something. It was like a Hispanic networking, professional networking group on meetup.com, and I remember meeting up with them in some lounge. It was beautiful. I mean, the event was so well put together, such great energy, so many great people that were there that I met, business cards that were exchanged. And so out of that, I realized that in order to do great business, you have to constantly network, but not just network, right? Network and gain the right resources and connections and people that you need to be close to. That's going to help you get where you need to go. And in turn, you're also helping them get where they need to go business wise too, right? Now, I by no means am any legal or financial consultant. So please bear with me with this piece of the episode segment. Um, I think as a single parent, it's such a touchy and sensitive topic when we're talking about finances, right? As the custodial parent, the parent that the child lives with, our children take all our money. And I think that a lot of times the other parent um, gets offended, right? When you're asking for help and asking for support or asking for more help and more support, especially when you have more than one child. It's like, listen, all my money go to the kids and all the bills. And so I'm pretty much left with nothing. And while I want to understand, your situation, it's hard to because again, I have no choice in the matter. My children soak up all my money because they live with me. Um, and so I will say that I've had different experiences when it comes to child support per se or any, financial aspects of parenting. I think that it's been a journey to get the understanding of what's a good amount of money to be giving the other parent in support of your child or children. It's hard to say, you know what I mean? I think that a lot of things should be considered, not just how much each other makes, but what are your overall responsibilities, um, bills and all of that. And I know, yeah, oh, why should I care about what they got? Yeah, right. But again, because we want people to understand us, we want people to, have grace for us. We too have to do the same. I do know, you know, um, there were times where I had to be like, you know what? I don't even want the child support. See your child. Just see your child. Have a relationship with your child. And that to me was way more important. So again, it's really based on your situation. Each situation is different. Whatever works for you, I highly suggest you do that. I think that taking advice about child support, whether or not you should be trying to get child support or whatever the case, how much she should be taken from me, is really up to you and that other parent. And I think that once you become adults and be able to sit down and talk to each other and work through that, y'all can figure that out. Can't nobody tell y'all that. I would say if you feel it in your spirit that you need support and you don't think you're going to get it no other way, especially not by talking to him because maybe you don't have communication with them or you don't have good communication with the other parent, then take advantage of legal resources if that's what you feel you need to do, especially if you don't even know where they are and they're really being non-responsive at all, because I know there's situations like that. Just because in looking back, um, I do regret not taking advantage. I didn't because of my own personal reasons, and I felt I needed to protect myself. So for me, again, my interest was either you're going to help me raise your child or you're not. And if you're not, then there's nothing we need to speak about. Keep your money, God gonna get you. And then again, I've also now ventured into being in co-parenting situations where the support is given and I don't have to really ask or question. And so it's been a blessing to experience both sides because I can tell you that there is hope to get from one situation to the other. And again, that just really looking back, it just all comes from being understanding towards one another, plain and simple. So much for watching the episode. There was a few questions that we've received that I wanted to answer that I thought would be interesting, especially under the co-parenting subject. One is, how do we support our child's emotional well-being during transitions between homes? It's really hard because my daughter goes from one borough to another in New York City. And if you know, you know, sometimes getting from one borough to the other could even take up to 2 to 3 hours, right? Depending on where you're going to and where you're coming from and how, So I don't drive, unfortunately, but, so I have to take a lot of mass transportation. So it's a little difficult, not just emotionally, physically first, right? And then beyond that, it's I'm going to two totally different households. You know what I mean? Two totally different sets of siblings, you know, two totally different parents with two totally different personalities and expectations of me, and even the way the house is set up. You know what I mean? So I definitely had to understand that. And then I'm talking, to the other parent, like, listen, please don't bring her late on this day because, she got school the next day. Or, she could stay with you a little, another day or two because she don't got school on that day. And so it's, again, back to the communication and understanding and putting it all out there. Like, just be honest. Once I knew I was going to be with that man no more, it was so easy to be like, you know what, dude, this is what it is and this is what I need. And yeah, Get it together. It's just been a little easier because, the personal feelings have been taken out of it and we're just really focusing on the kids. Second question, what boundaries should be set to respect each other's privacy and personal life? Again, like I said, don't come knocking on my door any time of the day or night. Ask me, say, oh, I'm on my way. Is that okay? Or, if I know you're going to drop your child off, then clearly I'm going to expect that, right? But again, you want to give me the heads up because you no longer live here. And my space is to be respected, especially the space that I fund and I finance. So there's that. Um, Also, like, don't touch me. Like, I don't like people, like, putting their hands on me. So my thing is respect my space, my body, my, and they do. I'm not saying that they don't. I'm just saying I'm putting it out there. Like, that's the vibe that I put out there. So, they pretty much know when they're around me, like, yeah, it's pretty much over. She just want to raise her kid. I get it. um and it's no shade. It's just, I want to make sure that my kids know that the older I get, I'm not settling for less than. So, I'm not putting myself in any toxic or unhealthy situation. So that it is what it is. Last question, how can we ensure consistency in rules and discipline between both households? Um, again, communication. Like I let, her dad know, her dad lets me know um the things that he talks to her about, like if there's a conversation they need to have about how she's behaving, how she's presenting herself, maybe something she's wearing, what she's saying, maybe she's something she's posting online, because believe it or not, these kids is, they know how to get online, they know how to create accounts, they know how to do a lot of stuff. So believe it or not, parents, you need to have the conversations with them, and it can't just be a you can't do this, because they're gonna find the ways. um and so communication is big, scheduling things. I like to have important conversations face to face. I don't like to have them, you know, important conversations face to face. Difficult conversations maybe text, just because I don't want to offend them, and or maybe the way the conversation is going to be had is best to have it maybe even start it via text, right? And then finish it face to face. I don't know. So there's different methods I use for both of the dads, and at different times I switch it up depending on where we are at in the co-parenting relationship at the time. So really great questions that I thought were really important to explore, because these are valid feelings and things that our kids feel during our times that we break up. Or I'm going to be very honest with you, even parenting in the same household, when you're not, even when you're in a healthy marriage or relationship, right? You're not always going to see eye to eye, especially with raising kids. Like, we were all not raised the same way. We were all not given the same childhood experience. I wish we were. Hopefully, all good, but we were not. So here we are. And therefore, the best we can do is learn from one another, work with one another, be there for one another, and most importantly, listen to one another and support one another. So, thank you so much, everyone, for joining me on the second episode of our solo co parenting uh, topic and discussion. It's been such a great outlet to just kind of throw these discussions out there. I'm so interested in hearing all of your feedback. Please feel free to email us at number one single parent podcast at Gmail. It's no number one single parent podcast at gmail.com. We're also on Instagram at the handle The Single Parent Podcast, as well as on Facebook, The Single Parent Podcast. Please feel free to send in any comments, any of your reactions or your opinions based on what we talked about today. What kind of co-parenting do you do? What kind of parenting styles do you suggest? What has worked for you and what has not? And what have you learned from them? Those are the kind of questions you can answer if you'd like. Again, thank you so much for joining me, and stay tuned for more episodes of the Single Parent Podcast. Have a good day.